Hello everyone. Um, this is the first video of what I'm hoping to be a long list of videos talking about ASP.NET, especially the ASP.NET Core that is based on the .NET Core framework. Um, I wanted to do these series of videos so that I could keep track of these technologies which are now open source and being developed at a pretty rapid pace. And it's it is difficult to keep track of all the changes that are happening, especially if you're involved in almost day-to-day updates, or if you try to keep up and follow day-to-day updates. So this is my attempt to see if I can keep myself on the learning curve and follow along with everything that's happening. So I've collected a bunch of resources to keep myself updated on ASP.NET Core development, and I thought I should share that with everyone for a very simple reason, which is why not, right? I mean, it's the easiest way to learn. Uh, I am not going to profess myself as someone who is an expert, but here we are. So let's get started. Okay, this is going to be the entry point, right? This is public static void main, right? This is the official documentation site, at least for now, for all Microsoft technologies. Well, at least, whatever you can call all. But we are going to be concerned mostly with ASP.NET and the ASP.NET Core specifically in this stack. So if you just drill down, you go to docs.microsoft.com, you click on ASP.NET, it takes you to the official documentation site, and then get started. This is probably the most important page. I've honestly lost count how many times I have come to this page. Uh, this site is very well indexed on Google as well. So if you're ever searching and you see docs.microsoft.com popping up, I highly recommend that you take a look at that documentation, even if you think that that might not answer your question at that point in time. But I must point out, this is one of the most interesting things I've seen. I've not seen this before. This 1 minute to read. It's interesting. Apparently, all of this takes 1 minute, which is not that difficult. It probably does for a few people, but if you actually drill down to something like this, and you see it takes someone 8 minutes to read. If I'm reading this for the first time, it definitely does not take me just 8 minutes to read and understand. It probably is saying it takes you about 8 minutes to read. We really cannot guarantee how long it's going to take you to understand, but the hope is that everyone reads and understands this documentation. Like for example, I on my professional side, I work a lot on security as a software architect, so I'm very interested in this section. I have been coming to this section from the time when almost none of these links actually existed, but we will probably do authentication a lot more in detail when we get to it. But we're going to go through this site, go through the samples, probably not of this site, but we will make some sample of our own. We will be doing ASP.NET Core 2.0, which is the latest in their lineup right now, as of this date. But before we do that, because ASP.NET Core is open source, let's actually see that. Let's actually see what and where this code is living at this point in time. So if I go here, so the code is all up on GitHub. If you are not familiar with GitHub, it's a website wherein you can write code and then publish it on this website. There are two formats basically to it: the private and public. ASP.NET is public. Well, all of the stuff on the ASP.NET repository is public. You don't even need to sign in into GitHub to see the source code. But so this is the landing page for ASP.NET, which is github.com/ASP.NET. We are going to concentrate on the home. The home is the place where if you have any issue that you think is a bug, or you have an issue that you need to get resolved, on which you might not be getting an answer somewhere else, and you think genuinely it's an issue, this is where you would come and post it if you did not know where to post it on the ASP.NET repositories. Because let's go back, let's see that ASP.NET has all these different repositories, right? For entity framework, for identity, for Signal R, all of these. If you do not know that your issue is related to some particular repository, then you would go to home and you would post an issue here, right? GitHub is fairly easy. It's just you click on new issue, you put in your question. There's a template that they probably do ask you to fill in for ASP.NET specifically, and you just fill it in and you see if someone can answer it, right? But I would not recommend you do this if you have a almost like an everyday issue that you might not know the solution for. For those kinds of issues, you go to Stack Overflow, right? And then you go to the ASP.NET Core tag and you post the issue over there. But for something that you think is maybe a bug specifically, that's when you're coming to this issues and you're logging an issue, right? The second repository that we will go to is the announcements repo. The announcements repo is where the ASP.NET team announces their new features, their planning for future versions, and this is where you follow to know what is changing. So you see all these red labels here which say breaking change. Basically means they are right now in the works to make something which might break a current implementation. Now, whether that change remains to a released version or not is no one's guarantee. But the current code that might exist might change something that is in the released version, which is how you get this breaking change label. Again, you need to realize that with something that is being developed on open source, there's a lot of chatter that goes around, right? So the best thing you can do that I have found to be working for me is I follow this, but when an announcement and a breaking change happens, I read about it, right? And I just see if it applies to me at that point in time, and I note it down on my end just as a point to remember when I'm doing something in the future, right? Because if you go into some of these announcements and breaking changes, they have let's pick one actually. Okay, let's pick this one. I'm actually picking on something. But if you see this, they have these different issues that are logged for that particular breaking change, right? And some of these, like this one is a perfect example of that, has a lot of chatter, a lot of back and forth that goes on. So be warned that if you want to get involved in this, you need to be pretty much up to date in what's going on, or else you're just gonna get confused more than actually finding out something new, right? So this is not for everyone. Please do keep that in mind. This is basically for people who are doing .NET and ASP.NET Core development day in and day out. It's not primarily meant for people who are just going to be consuming ASP.NET Core when it does release, right? The point where you're comfortable with, and don't try digging more deeper. Stay where you are, understand what you do, and then for the rest, note it down so that you can come back later when you are probably working on that particular topic, right? Now, after this, this is the same document site that you come back to, but what I wanted to show you on this was you can also come to that from the official ASP.NET website and then go to Learn and then click on ASP.NET Core Learn More, and you would come essentially to the same page, right? Now, another thing I wanted to show you guys after we actually know where to get the documentation for ASP.NET, the next thing we need to know is how do we get it onto our machine, right? That is where we come to this download.NET Core page, which is kind of interesting because this is actually a redirect for a website called .net. So it is dot.net, or you could just remember it as microsoft.com/net, right? But you would come to that, you come to this kind of a page. By the way, we will probably look at this section a lot more in the future videos, but not right now. But you could click on this download button, which takes you to this page. Now, I'm not showing you .NET Framework and Xamarin right now because, to be honest, I'm not dealing with Xamarin at all, at least in this series. In .NET Framework is pretty straightforward. It's you download next, and you're done. But .NET Core, I wanted to show you a few things, which is with every open source and the kind of development environment that we have these days, comes a few new things that people who are probably coming from .NET Framework do not realize, which is this concept of multiple versions of the same framework, right? That might be going on at the same time, right? So right now you see that when you go and download, you're downloading the .NET Core 2.0 SDK. Now there are very few people who would do any of these things. Majority of the people would be going with, if you're starting to develop, you're going to go and download Visual Studio 2017 15.3 update, which is also interesting. We will cover that in the next video. But when you do download Visual Studio 2017 15.3 and up, what you do get is the .NET Core 2.0 SDK, right? Along with that comes the .NET Core 2.0 runtime. However, for a lot of people like me who have been doing .NET Core and ASP.NET Core development from their early beta versions, we already have apps that are running in versions prior to 2.0. So if you're someone like that who have just joined a project where you already have an app that's using ASP.NET Core, say 1.1 running in their system right now, you would go to this, right? So you see this two runtime versions. What they call it LTS and current, right? LTS essentially stands for long-term support. What that means is, in a very subtle way, this is I shouldn't really be saying tried and tested because, well, let's be honest, this has been for about a year and a half now. Not even a year and a half, probably a year. But this is what Microsoft is committing to you, saying that we are going to support this framework if you ever need to call Microsoft support for an extended period of time, right? Whereas this .NET Core 2.0 runtime is the current version that is supported by Microsoft. right? So this is the latest. This is the version that they have committed for a long-term support. So it could be possible that you start, I've seen a lot of companies start with 1.1, including mine, just because of that long-term support. Now, when we were starting out with our project on 1.1, we we had some information about 2.0, but it was not all baked in, so we did not know what was going to be available in the 2.0 when it would be released, which is now. Again, specifically to the security stuff that I was actually showing you some time back. So which is why we picked 1.1, because we wanted to know that when we made the product that we were making, we would have support from Microsoft on that product, right? It's choose whatever you like scenario. Basically, you could choose 1.1, which has support. You could choose 2.0, which again is the current one, and then just pick and run with it, the one that you feel the most comfortable with. Like if now 2.0 has just released a few days back, and if I were to start a brand new project right now, I would definitely do it in 2.0, because a 2.0 .NET Core is far more mature in terms of the sheer number of libraries, and we will learn this in a few in maybe in the next video about .NET Standard, which is what the .NET Core 2.0 is based on. So there are a lot of good things in 2.0 which we do miss in the 1.x version series. So if I had to start a project today, I would do that in 2.0, which is why this entire series is going to be based on 2.0 and not 1.x. But I will show you how to run 1.x and 2.0 on the same system, which is the most awesome thing you can do right now, right? Is run multiple frameworks. I don't know, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but we will get to it. However, this particular thing, this particular page over here in this table does not show you the previous SDKs and the previous runtimes. So if you already have a project that is running on those, you would go down and you would click this link, the release archives. This takes you to this page, this one, and this has download links for every released version for .NET Core. Right now, do remember, ASP.NET Core is now a part of .NET Core. There is no segregation between, oh, I need to download ASP.NET Core and not .NET Core. So there really wasn't like that before, but it's just a very simple thing now. You just download .NET Core and you get ASP.NET Core with it, right? And it goes the same way for ASP.NET Core, and I believe when you do it through Visual Studio as well, right? Now, so we know where to get the information, we know where to get the software from. The next thing, the last bit of thing, in fact, that I wanted to show you was, if I wanted to stay updated, say I'm taking that decision that I might want to stay up to date with maybe a few hints of what is going on these days, right? I have just 3 links which I think are very important for people to know if you want to keep up with this space. The first is obviously Scott Hanselman's blog. You get the latest and the greatest information, sometimes on topic, sometimes not on topic, but obviously always entertaining. It's an amazing blog. Read it. If you are doing .NET, read the blog. The next one is the .NET Foundation. So you go to YouTube, you search for .NET Foundation, which will land you here, and you go to playlist, and then if you have a lot of time, doing nothing, you would watch the ASP.NET Community stand-up. Now there are obviously, like it says, 114 videos in there. You can pick and choose. I wouldn't know how you would do that, but I've been watching it for quite some time now. There's not a lot of ASP.NET direct information in there, but whatever stuff they do speak on ASP.NET Core, it is worth listening to. It's basically three people: Damian Edwards, John Galloway, and Scott Hanselman. It happens every Tuesday, or at least they try to do it every Tuesday. It's interesting. Take a look at it sometimes. Just if you have nothing else to do in this world, just look at it. I, for one, have nothing to do on Tuesdays sometimes. Well, most of the time, so I do watch that. The next one, this is the official blog for the ASP.NET team, so you will see all the major announcements coming through this blog. So you definitely want to keep this as a bookmark, or you want to subscribe to this particular blog to know what are the big pieces that are coming out. Like, for example, you will have announcements for this. This is SignalR for ASP.NET Core 2.0. It says announces SignalR, which was a little confusing. Actually, a couple of people did come to me and ask if SignalR was released. This is not true. This is a very, like it says in the very first sentence, it's an alpha release of SignalR, so it is not meant to be in production. You can try out. Again, we go back to our same concept, that you pick and choose what you think is right for your environment, right? There's all sorts of information out there. You pick what suits you best, right? This is a interesting post. Then this was an interesting post to me because I happen to be involved in IIS for a long time now, and that's about it in this video. We will go through downloading Visual Studio and .NET, and probably a previous version of .NET also, so that we can try out a side-by-side very simple .NET Core, ASP.NET Core application in the next video, and take it from there. Thank you for watching.